What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be talking about vlogging. I had just got my brand new Sennheiser MKE 200 mic, which is going to be exclusively used on my R6 for vlogging. That's replacing my Rode Video Micro. Been a great mic. Honestly, it's still something I recommend, but I wanted something a little bit more compact, a little bit smoother with my setup, and I really like Sennheiser. I've been using them for my professional audio, my MK H416. I also been using it for my MKE 600, which was my first shotgun mic, you know, when I was doing independent filmmaking. But the MK H416 is a workhorse. That mic is next level, and there is a difference. But if you're starting out, I do recommend something like the MKE 600, which lives on my Canon C70 for running gun stuff. But when I'm doing like filmmaking, I am using the MK H416 all day, every day. And I got a great price on it when I was, you know, looking at Facebook Marketplace. I'm always looking at Craigslist, B&H, seeing if something's open box, used. You could get great prices. And these, you know, shotgun mics and stuff like that last for years. Tripods, where cameras, and we kind of talking about cameras today because I'm going to be talking about vlogging options. You know, they switch in and out. Technology comes in and out, so the prices drop a lot quicker. Where an MK H416 was $1,000 a year ago, it's still $1,000 now. But if you buy it on the used market, you can get some great prices because people are always looking to upgrade their gear. So with that said, today's video, as I said, the vlogging options, I'm gonna break it down into 3 different classes. It's gonna be like the airlines. You have the premium, you have comfort, you have economy. So none of these classes, you know, means that the person in the class is a better person. They all gonna get you to the same destination, but on that travel, that journey, there's gonna be some features the classes give you that might be a little bit more, provide a better experience, right? I'm not gonna say makes you better, but provides a better experience. So we're gonna start off with the premium class of vlogging cameras, and I'm gonna put cameras like the one I'm vlogging on right now, which is a Canon R6 in that class, the R5, Sony a7S III, Panasonic GH5, the S1H, and these are all cameras that have log. They are hybrid cameras, which means you can take them from a video shoot to a photo shoot and still get some great, if not professional level quality images, video and photo wise. I know a lot of people might comment, well, the Sony a7S III is a 12 megapixel camera, but it still has some professional features, and with Lightroom and Photoshop, you have tools now that can up-res 8 megapixel images to 20 megapixels. So technology is turning over. So as long as the dynamic range is there and the quality and the sensor is there, you can do a lot even with 12 megapixels. So, you know, those cameras are falling into that, and most of them is full frame outside of the Panasonic GH5, which is a huge advantage because now you get the shallow depth of field, which is cool because you can see that I'm out and about. You can see a background, but at the same time I have the focus on me. The other feature, they have eye detection, so I don't have to worry about being in focus. I do appreciate the flip out LCD screen just to make sure it's locked on my eye, which is a cool little feature. The other thing about these cameras, has 422 10-bit internally, which, you know, is great just for color correcting, with especially when you're shooting in log. It gives you a little bit more room to kind of make the image yours, to design your own custom look. So I know a lot of people now are using lookup tables. If you're not familiar with lookup tables, those are LUTs, very similar to, you know, filters that you use on Instagram. Is basically people creating and shifting color, white balance, contrast, you know, hue, saturation, making tweaks, and then, you know, exporting it out into a cube file. Having a camera with those capabilities and those qualities is very beneficial because now you get to really custom your look. You know, I think a lot of YouTubers in the beginning was using a teal and orange look because it was the obvious choice, crisp contrast. I really tend to go to a more natural feel, but it's still good to play with, whether you're doing a scary movie, you want to go greenish with it. You know, normally the 422 10-bit and these cameras were reserved for more higher end cameras, cinema cameras. So now that they come into these hybrid cameras, these mirrorless cameras, you know, it's just a welcome feature. And like the C-Log is new to the Canon lineup for non-Canon cinema cameras. Sony had it for a while, a6500. Even the camera I'm going to talk about next, which is the Sony ZV-1 S-Log 2, S-Log 3, Canon has C-Log 3 in these mirrorless cameras. The other thing about these cameras is most of them, for the most part, their original sensor is a higher resolution in 4K, so there's downsampling going on in the cameras, which is cool because when you bring it into Final Cut and you're doing something like uploading to YouTube and you have to go through the compression, you have a little bit more room and a little bit more information, so it's going to survive the compression a little bit better than what you might think. Also, if you have to crop out the footage, if there was some distraction, I want to go tighter in, I can do that, so that's a welcome feature. In addition to that, what else can we add on to this premium class? We added, it has Ibis. Basically the sensor moves itself to give you image stabilization versus some of the earlier generation of cameras have EIS, which it crops in on the image just to kind of balance it out a little bit on the edges. But Ibis, actually the sensor moves, which is a welcome feature. So you combine that with some of the lenses, especially with the RF. Like right now I have the 35 1.8 on. That's giving you 3 stops of image stabilization, 5 stops internally. So I got 8 stops of image stabilization built into the camera, which is pretty dope. One little note, because my homegirl hit me up and said she liked my car setup. Full transparency, the reason why I like shooting my car, a lot of times when I'm at the house, I have my camera all over the place, my tripod set up. I got to think about what I'm going to use, where sometimes the great thing about vlogging, why I recommend people vlogging, it just gets you out of your head. You just got to shoot whatever subject you got to work on it. And me being an actor and an artist, it's also working on my ability to be spontaneous with my thoughts. So I could be wanting to think about this thing, oh, let's talk about that, but I got to stay to the script, I got to stay to the story, which is vlogging options or anything related to vlogging. So I just wanted to throw that little point in there. And to my homegirl that hit me up about it, Arka Swiss plates, you can mount this on the bottom of your camera, and this way, if I was switching between the Sony ZV-1 and the R6 right now, I wouldn't have to worry about, let's record this real quick. You get the Arka Swiss plate base, and I can swap out, I can release the camera, and it'll be just like that. Here's a little setup right here, you can see. And that's the other thing. Even when I talk about the comfort class, same setup. I need to flip out LCD screen. I need the audio, which is one of the things that Sony ZV-1 did really good, having audio built in. So that was a welcome feature. So, Arka Swiss plates, no matter what you're shooting with, this is something that I'm going to recommend to all content creators. Start to learn about base plates, because whether you're moving to higher end production cameras, it's still going to be applicable. Whether you're using Manfrotto plates, whether you're using Arka Swiss plates, whether you're like, well, I'm never really going to go into filmmaking, I'm just going to use GoPros, action cams, or you can also use base plates for that. So it's kind of like, if you notice, like the Joby Gorilla Pod, which is the go-to Gorilla Pod for vloggers being able to be out and about. You can use it as a tripod, sit it down. Joby has a very specific plate that you're not going to find anywhere. So if you're out and about and you're like, oh man, I lost that plate, but guess what, if you got Arka Swiss plate, it's the same thing. The same Arka Swiss plate here is the same one in the car mount, so I can take the R6 from the car mount and put it right onto the Joby Gorilla Pod, and that is going to save you a lot as you start to understand that, even if you get like the 3K kit for the Joby Gorilla Pod and you're like, oh man, I'm always looking for that piece, you leave the piece on there, you put an Arka Swiss plate on top, you can go from the car mount to the tripod. It just makes your ecosystem so much easier to kind of navigate through. You have all the features that you will require from the premium class. You might not have Ibis built into this camera, but it does have some image stabilization built in. It actually also has an ND filter built into this camera, and it has a zoom lens, 24-70. It's a Zeiss lens. The reason why I love this thing and I recommend it, because if you're not familiar with Zeiss, Zeiss has amazing optical quality. So to get a camera like this with a Zeiss lens, 24-70 equivalent, 1.8 to 2.8, if you're not familiar, at 24 millimeters, you can only get down to 1.8 at its widest, and at its longest, which is 70 millimeters, you only can stop down to a 2.8. Now, the shallow depth of field is not going to be the same if you're shooting on a full frame camera, which most of the premium cameras are, but you still can get a nice little shallow depth of field. And then it has features like product showcase, which you don't have to worry about if you're showing a product, that the face tracking is locking on you. It's going to feature the product. Those are great little features. It has the little dead cat at the top, so if you're getting audio, it's not going to be as good as if I'm using an MK, which is a directional mic right here. Super cardioid directional mic, the new Sennheiser mic I picked up for vlogging. This should be a little bit cleaner, but at the end of the day, you're still going to get a nice low sound quality from the ZV-1 with this audio setup. So I really love what they did with this, and it has the size, it has the form factor, it has the 4K, it has the features. The one knock that I would say on this camera, the battery life is about an hour in these things, so just be mindful of that. The cool thing about a lot of these new cameras, even the premium ones like the R6, has a USB-C adapter, so you can always buy a portable adapter, charge it, make sure it's PD power delivery. And even with some of the Sony ZV-1, this is micro USB, so you can make sure you have a portable micro USB adapter charger, just to charge it as you go and you're not shooting, because the battery life in the Sony ZV-1 is not that great. Other cameras that I'm gonna put in the class of the Sony ZV-1 is the Osmo Pocket, which is a lot cheaper than the Sony ZV-1, but it's another camera option. It has 4K 60 frames per second. So does the Sony ZV-1. This make for some of you getting into the premium cameras, you gotta swap up lenses to really take advantage of vlogging. You know, you can have a 24-105, but then that makes the rig a little heavier, you know, versus Sony ZV-1, the 24-70 built in is just phenomenal. But if you are someone that's going to eventually look into filmmaking and you want to start making that investment now, then going a mirrorless hybrid camera like R6, R5, S1H, Sony A7S III is something that's an investment that I think will stand the test of time. And it's not like back in the days when I had a 5D Mark II. I knew as soon as the 5D Mark III was coming out, I wanted to offload that because it was features that was going to be applicable right away. So ever since video face tracking has been added to cameras, the jump and the benefit of features is not going to be so impactful for vloggers going forward. So don't look at it like, oh, there's going to be a new camera coming out, because for the most part, some of the new features is not stuff you're not going to be able to handle. Like the R5, if you're a vlogger, I don't think you should consider the R5. Why? Because one, the biggest benefit of the R5 over the R6 is 8K. Do you have the memory card space and the computer space to handle 8K raw footage? If you don't, why do you need the R5? Oh, you want to take 45 megapixels? Are you doing billboards? You know what I mean? Normally those are campaign shoots, and honestly, when people are really trying to do billboards, then they pulling out something like the A1, or they pulling out something like the Hasselblads or medium format cameras. Don't get me wrong, that 45 megapixels in the R5 can do a billboard, but just understand that that's very niche for people that's doing 45 megapixels. So you can look at some stuff online, there's some comparisons with that, so just kind of keep that in mind. But for anyone that doesn't know about interchangeable lenses, start off with a Sony ZV-1. If you know you are buying a camera to move into the filmmaking world, yes, then you can get something like the R6, because it's gonna age very well. You know what I mean? I wouldn't always say that about the other cameras. I jumped from a 5D Mark III to a Sony A6500, one because I sold my 5D Mark III at the time for $1,800, picked up the A6500 for $1,100 with a lens, and that camera gave me 4K 120 at 1080p, face tracking, all the things my 5D Mark III didn't have. The only benefit of the 5D Mark III was I loved the Canon colors a little bit better, but also in addition to that, it was a full frame camera. But I was good on that. If I gotta buy a faster lens, and Sony E-mount has a lot of lenses, you know, I was willing to buy a faster lens to kind of duplicate that same shallow depth of field. So always keep that in mind. But all in one, Sony ZV-1 is amazing. So I stayed on this topic for a minute. To wrap this up, we're gonna get down to the final class, which is the economy class. Like I said, all these cameras are going to get you to the destination, and the economy class is your cell phone, the one that you always have with you. This is Samsung Galaxy S20. I don't really need to go into the features of it, but you know, most cell phones now have 4K. And the thing about it is, I know a lot of times people are like, yeah, you can shoot a movie on a cell phone. Well, I'm going to say that, yes, you can. Technically, you can shoot a movie on anything that can record video. Now, once you understand the limitations of a cell phone, that cell phones have small sensors, like smaller sensors than what's in the Sony ZV-1, then you can really compete, even on the vlogging level. Like I told you, one of the biggest benefits of the premium cameras, vlogging options, they're full frame cameras, which is giving me a shallow depth of field. Now, which full frame allows you to let more light into the sensor, which means full frame cameras are for the most part better in low light than crop sensor cameras. Even though Sony has done a great job, and they will argue that, because some of their crop sensor cameras can compete with full frame cameras from Canon, Fuji, and all these other different brands. But for the most part, full frame is going to make it better in low light. Cell phone does not really good in low light. So if you're shooting in the day, you're shooting on vacation, you're doing travel videos, and you have a lot of light, a cell phone can get it done. It can get it done in photography. Cell phones now have, raw capabilities in terms of photos, between Lightroom, editing up. You can do a lot of good things with that. Once you understand those limitations, if you can master those limitations and use that as advantages for everything you shoot, shooting in daylight, shooting with a lot of light, controlling light, cell phones can do a lot. And for the most part, keep in mind, this cell phone I think was like $1,400. Most cell phones are $1,000 above. It's more expensive than the Sony ZV-1. So I don't want you to buy an additional cell phone just to, vlog with. If you have the room to buy one of these cameras, by all means do so. But if you don't, you can start vlogging with your cell phone now. Start understanding, composition, how to set things up, how to rig out your cell phone, buying a universal holder. In the description box below, I'll put links down to some suggestions to some of the stuff I said, links to the mics I use, the gear I use, so feel free to check that out. But yeah, you can start to really work with a cell phone, learn the limitations, understand how to apply that moving forward, because once you start to be like, oh, I like this focal length, that's the cool thing. You can start to build what you like, what you prefer, and when you're shooting on a cell phone and you meet those limitations, then you'll be like, I need a camera that can shoot better in low light. But if you've been shooting on a cell phone and everything is perfect, then you're good. You got the perfect camera for what you need right now. So, just kind of keep that in mind. All of these different cameras is going to get you to the destination. Just some features, and it's really the person whether these features are going to benefit you more than other features. So, it's subjective, So with all that in mind, you're going to hear me say this on my channel a lot. There's no such thing as a perfect camera. It is what is the perfect camera for you. And that's based on timing, your situation, your finances, and all those other different things. The most important thing is the story. So go out there and tell your stories. And if you got any questions, feel free to comment down below. And as always, I'm here to give game. I learned so much from this platform. So until next time, stay creative, be courageous, and get on your grind.